Today we're talking about how to accept and move on from failure. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Is failure always necessary for growth, or can we succeed without it? I definitely think that failure is a necessary component to growth, but maybe how we handle failure is a different matter, right? Because you can literally shoot a basketball, miss, and be like, man, I suck. And then just never pick back up the basketball. And there's a lot of things in life like that where you just do it one time and you're like, yeah, I suck at this. Peace out. And that's just not the way to go about anything that you want to pursue, right? When you first start drawing or whatever, the drawings are probably going to look like shit. And so I think recognizing that it's not really a failure is now just a step in the right direction. I've talked about this a lot about coding, but when you have a problem to solve, you typically don't get the function right on the very first try, and that's okay. Sometimes you do, but that's a lot of times that comes from you knowing what you're doing and doing it over and over and over again. So you kind of have this kind of mental map in your head to be able to kind of navigate it. But if you're first starting out at anything, it's natural to fail. The point is to, pretty much put in the reps, make it undeniable. If I did this 100 minutes every single day for 100 days, then maybe I can judge my character a little bit on that on the 100th day. Not until then. Does society over glorify failure as part of success stories? It does seem like every single podcast you listen to, there's some sort of origin story where, the CEO or the person just had a terrible time figuring things out and then something clicked or whatever. But I think that that's just the part of life. If you look at storytelling in general, like in filmmaking and stuff like that, a story is not a good story without the main character going through the trials and tribulations, all the hard stuff. And the hard stuff a lot of times does look like failure. And so in our lives, we don't just get it, by default most times. Most times we have to work hard for it. And even if it looks as though someone got something by default, there's so many different things in our mind that we're going through. You have mental failure, you have physical failure. There's all sorts of different failures you can have. So just because the person gets the thing that they, maybe want, doesn't mean they got the thing that they needed. And that's very important, especially in filmmaking. You got, main character gets what they wanted, but not what they needed. Main character gets what they needed, but not what they wanted. Main character gets what they wanted and what they needed. That's a happy-go-lucky film. And then sometimes they don't get what they wanted and they didn't get what they needed. And I think if you allow failure to take over in your life, that can look a lot like that. Not what you wanted, not what you needed. So I think it's necessary. I don't think that it's over specifically glorified, but I do think it's part of almost anybody's origin story. Okay. Should parents let their children fail more often to build resilience? Yes. And I find myself in this habit, in this moment where I'll just kind of solve for my boys versus asking them the questions that I should probably ask them. Hey, so what do you think? How do you think we should solve this? And because it's way better to teach someone how to fish than to get the fish for them. Because then they don't create this critical thinking ability to kind of pursue hard problems or pursue life's problems. They always kind of you have a codependency on other people to solve it for you. And that is not really, for me at least, a life that I'd want to live. I want to be self-sufficient. I want to know that I am strong and I do have this ability to be able to move mountains and move things if I put my mind to it. And know that even though I keep on hitting a wall, I am making progress each time. I'm coming back a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better each time until I get over that wall. So we definitely need to allow our kids to fail a little bit more, but be more constructive about it. Not like you failed, you're terrible, you suck, but more encouraging problem solving skill thinking, skills. Are some failures purely destructive with no silver lining? Yes. I think when you lose hope, when you finally give up, like your life has hit you so hard that you're like, what's the point of life? And you're just, that's it. Then yeah, that might be the ultimate, failure, because a life not worth lived, what's the point? And so I've had a moment in my life where I just looked around and I was like, what the fuck is the point of this? And I didn't have any I didn't feel like I had a way out. I felt like I'd exhausted all my options. I felt like I exhausted everything. I exhausted myself, and I wasn't okay. And I know that was a very dark time for me. And when you're going through dark times create dark people, and dark people do dark things. And there's no judgment over here, because I understand why people do certain horrific, terrible things that they do, because they're so angry and mad and unhappy with the world, and there's no consequence anymore. So I think maybe that's the ultimate failure, when you just lose all hope. And so working on figuring out how to not get to that place. I don't know if you're in that place right now. I really hope you're not. But knowing that this is a chapter, okay, and even though every book has every book has a chapter or a segment called the Dark Night of the Soul, and the Dark Night of the Soul is always almost the end of Act 2, where everything is lost, everything is hopeless. And then what happens for the Dark Night of the Soul, that segment, is usually there's a mentor, there's a person that was introduced probably earlier in the book that comes and gives a pep talk. It's like, yo, you fucking got this, you can crush this, you've got this. And everything that they were trying before did not work, but with the guidance or the talk with that mentor, they come up with a new idea to then crush the bad guy and fucking win. And if you're in that moment in time, that could be it. That could be the unlock. These stories are not just made to be Hollywood hits, bro. We repeat the same stories over and over and over again, and there's a lot to be learned in learning how to tell a story. Is failure more common among those who take risk or those who avoid them? Ooh, that's a good one. I think constructive failure more for people that take risk, and crushing failure for those that don't take risk. When you don't take risk and you live this very vanilla life that you're unhappy with. By the way, if you're vibing with your life and your life is great, fucking crush, do that. But if you're completely unhappy with your life, when you avoid any sort of risk because of fear of something, a fear of punishment, fear of rejection, fear of whatever. Let's just say you're trying to get the girl. If you never shoot the shot, you don't get the girl. And therefore you failed by default. You failed by not trying. The other side of that, someone that's like, yo, I'm gonna take the shot, I'm gonna go again. They may fail several times, but at some point you take enough shots, you're gonna hit one. And I think that is great. Now, we've talked about risk previous in other episodes, but you have to have a certain allocation with risk. You don't want to do all high risk, high reward, because that can lead you to detriment. That can lead you to a bad spot. So you got to manage, high risk, high reward, a portion of that, maybe 30%, with maybe 70% of you know, low risk, moderate reward or whatever, which is just kind of chill. You're staying in the safe zone, right? Which might be considered a bit of that, not doing anything crazy. So you got about 70% of you that does that, and then this other side that's not related to this stuff, it's a risk taker. You're able to take some risk. Can we blame societal systems for our failures, or is it always personal responsibility? I'm always a thumb person, bro. I'm not a you person. I'm a thumb person. And so I may have talked about this before, but victim blaming. There's 3 levels of victim blaming. There's circumstance, there's other people, there's yourself. Okay? And so society is technically the 3rd level up at the top. Society, should we blame, let's see, can we blame societal systems for our failures? Societal systems are circumstance. Okay? And so if you're like, the government is why I'm poor, or it's a rainy day so I can't go out and play, or I have no time so I can't get fit. Okay? The circumstance is the reason. You cast blame onto that. And therefore, yeah, guess right. Guess it's the government. Guess it's whatever. When you cast blame to other people, other things, other whatever, you have no power. You give up your power. You take your power and you give it to the circumstance. Give up your power, give it to other people. So another point of that, right? So you have circumstance, you have other people. Going with the gym again, I can't go to the gym because other people will laugh at me for working out. Okay? I can't go to the party because like my spouse really hates those people, right? It's other people that you cast it onto. If you finally get to the point and being like, thumb right here, I can't get out of this hole because I'm depressed. I can't learn to code because I'm dumb or whatever. When you start to actually do the like yourself, one, like, it's not cool to call yourself dumb or whatever, but at the same time, if you realize that you are in control, you're like, you know what, I may feel dumb, but I can do something about this. I can educate myself. I can do all these things, and so therefore I can learn coding. All the other stuff you can't. I can't go to the gym because it's a rainy day. Well, guess what? It's a rainy day, and the rainy day happens, and so guess what? You're not going to go to the gym. But if you're like, I can't go to the gym because I'm not confident, you can then work on being confident. You're like, okay, I can do this. I'm in control. And so I don't think we can blame society for our failures. Shit happens. It is not a fair game out here. It never has been. And so you accept the cards that are dealt, and then you do the most. It's like playing Magic, bro. It's like playing Magic. Are people who never admit failure more successful than those who embrace it? I can't speak for anyone else. I can only speak for myself. I find that people that never accept fault, they're majority of the time victims. Things happen to them versus, them taking responsibility and being like, you know what, I got this. I can do this. And I think that people that accept fault and have empathy and that grow from their mistakes and say, you know what, I messed up today. I made a bad bet. I thought that it would take me 3 hours, but it took me 7 hours. You're like, that's on me. Cool. Not like, oh, I thought it was going to take me 3 hours, but it took me 7 hours. And it took me 7 hours because everyone around me was screaming and all these things, and I couldn't focus, and they were terrible. Like, you pretty much put the judgment on everybody else versus be like, you know what, maybe I could just find a better work environment. Maybe I could find a spot where I can focus, or maybe I can need to cut down the thing. You can control that stuff. And so I think people that are naturally have that problem solving, thumb, I think are much more successful. Facts. Does success after failure always feel more fulfilling? I don't think so. I think that success is a finite goal, right? You're like, just like happiness. Like, my goal is to be happy, or my goal is to, reach 100,000 subscribers, or my goal is that, right? That's the success part. But once you hit that, if that's the thing that you're reaching for, then on the other end of that, you may feel terrible because you don't have anything that's motivating you more. That's why I kind of like milestones, right? It's kind of like they're infinite milestones, like, okay, 100,000, okay, 1,000,000, okay, 10 million. You just keep pushing the bar up. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't specifically matter. It's almost like a note or a chapter. You're like, okay, that's cool. And you keep on moving. But success, you're successful right now. There's a lot of things that you've done right now. And are you happy? Maybe not. And so I think it's always a day-to-day where you just show up, you put in the hard work, and like you do fail a lot of times, but then you achieve, and then you go to the next one and the next one and the next one. I think that there's a temporary endorphin, like a temporary release where you're like, you know what, that felt good, that was great, awesome, dope, you did it. You prove something to yourself, which can give you the motivation to then continue to go on and on and on. Definitely have that little high, but you can definitely have the low too right after. So, yeah. All right, last one. Is it ethical to glorify stories of extreme failure for motivational purposes? Is it ethical to glorify stories of extreme failure for motivational purposes? I think if you're trying to like sap it for sensationalism, then maybe not. There's facts where people have gone through some shit, and I think that that's part of your origin story, and you should tell it, you should share it. But if you're like trying to, it's kind of like, I remember being in an interview or whatever, and this girl kept on talking about this car wreck that she was in, and that was the only thing she would talk about. Like, I was in this car wreck and I survived, and I da-da-da-da-da. And I find a lot of times that's maybe overcompensation. You're trying to find something that's interesting to hook people in, and then you just keep on telling the same thing and the same thing and the same thing. Let me tell you the worst thing that happened to me today. Let me tell you the worst thing that happened to me today. Let me tell you the worst thing that happened. You know what I mean? Like, you just kind of, in a sense, you can also get stuck into a self-fulfilling prophecy almost, like where you talk bad about the things that you've gone through, and so then you keep on going through those bad things. I definitely think that hard times motivates people. You can absolutely motivate people with your story. Just be honest with yourself about where it's coming from. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this little talk about just how to accept and move on from failure. Remember to hit the sub button, if you aren't already subbed. Appreciate you guys. I'm going to keep on bringing the self-development questions to you guys, and keep bringing the energy. Take care. Peace.